I woke up tasting blood that wasn't mine. My bedroom window was open, the night pouring in, but the air inside was colder than it should have been, like the world itself was holding its breath. My shirt was ripped down the front, but I didn't feel any pain until I saw the mark. My hands were sticky with something dark, but it wasn't just blood. It was memory clinging to my skin, memories that didn't belong to me. I wanted to believe it was just a nightmare, but when I stumbled into the bathroom and flicked on the light, my reflection showed a stranger's eyes, red-rimmed, wild, searching for answers I couldn't give. There it was on my chest, a crescent, red and angry, split with a single claw mark running through it. I pressed my fingers to it, hoping it was a trick of the light, but it burned under my touch, as real as the thunder still echoing in my skull. Tried to remember the night before, but every time I reached for a memory, it slid away, leaving only broken flashes. Rain slashing through the trees behind silver pines. A voice calling my name, but twisted, unfamiliar. A shape moving through the darkness, too fast, too hungry. They say the woods keep secrets, but I know now that some secrets don't want to be kept. I walked out of those woods, but I didn't come back alone. My bones ached, like something inside me was growing restless, stretching, reshaping. I thought I heard a howl, but it came from somewhere deep inside, not outside my window. I wanted to call someone. My dad, maybe, or Cass if we were still speaking. But what would I even say? Hey. I woke up with someone else's blood on my hands and a mark on my chest I can't explain. Also, I think there's something living inside my skin. That would go over real well. So I stood there staring at myself, half expecting the mirror to shatter, half hoping it would so I wouldn't have to see whatever was looking back. They say when the moon is full over silver pines, the old stories come out to play. But last night wasn't a full moon, and I was the one with the mark. If you've ever heard something scratching at memory, like this story, so it's never forgotten. I spent the morning scrubbing at the mark, but nothing made it fade. My chest looked like it had been branded from the inside out. By noon, the ache in my bones had turned into something sharper, a feeling like every muscle was strung too tight. I could snap if anyone touched me the wrong way. I tried to act normal, but it's not easy to fool people who've known you your whole life. Dad barely looked at me over breakfast, eyes glued to the old police scanner he kept on the counter. He hadn't shaved in days. The house still smelled like gun oil and coffee. He asked, "You sleep last night?" I lied. Just weird dreams. But I could tell he didn't believe me. He kept glancing at the window, the door, the woods, like he expected something to come crashing through. Maybe he did. After he left for work, I wandered outside, needing air. The wind carried a smell I couldn't place. Sharp, wild, almost electric. It made my skin crawl, but at the same time, my heart sped up, hungry for something I couldn't name. Cass was waiting for me by the old chain-link fence at the edge of our backyard. She always wore too much black, too many rings. She used to be my best friend, until last year, when everything went sideways. She hadn't talked to me since, not really, but today she looked at me like she'd been expecting me all along. "Rough night?" she asked, eyeing the torn shirt under my jacket. I tried to shrug it off, but her eyes narrowed. "You're bleeding," she said, reaching for my arm. I jerked away, too fast, too jumpy. "Jamie, you're acting weird, even for you." I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing sounded right. Instead, she pulled something from her pocket, a silver coin, old and dirty. She tossed it to me. I caught it by reflex, the metal cold against my palm. "Found that by the creek," she said. "Look familiar?" I shook my head, but as soon as my skin touched the coin, I felt a jolt, like a flashbulb in my skull. A memory that wasn't mine. A voice low and distant, whispering, he loved her more than the moon. Cass frowned. "You okay?" I squeezed the coin so hard it bit into my skin. "Just tired." She didn't believe me, but she didn't push either. Cass was like that. She let things unravel on their own. We stood in silence. The wind picked up, rattling the branches, carrying a scent of rain and something sharp, animal. I stared at the woods, remembering the howling, the shadows, the mark. Cass followed my gaze. "Are you going back out there?" she asked. I wanted to say no, but my mouth was dry. I wanted to believe I was safe, but the truth is, something was waiting. Out there, or maybe inside me. He's hiding something, but what? Would you forgive a friend who disappeared for a year? What would you ask first? The rest of the day dragged by in flashes and jolts. One moment I'd be sitting at my desk, trying to force myself to finish some pointless homework. The next, I'd find my hands shaking, nails digging lines into my notebook. The words blurred, my eyes burned. My mind kept sliding sideways into places I'd never been. I started to see things out of the corners of my eyes. Shadows curling along the baseboards, shapes shifting behind the glass of the old TV. I blinked, but the dark always came back thicker every time I looked away. When night finally fell, I couldn't stand to be indoors anymore. The house felt too small, too close. I grabbed a jacket and slipped out the back door, feeling the coin Cass had given me burn cold in my pocket. The woods behind Silver Pines were breathing. Every leaf, every stone, every inch of soil alive with a quiet, watching hunger. I wandered the old paths, half expecting Cass to show up, but she didn't. It was just me and the moon, not quite full, but fat and low, bleeding orange through the fog. That's when the dream started. Only I was awake. First, a girl's scream. Short, sharp, cut off. Then the rush of feet through wet leaves, a heartbeat pounding in my ears, so loud it drowned out everything else. My body ached, my skin prickled. The air tasted metallic like pennies on my tongue. I thought I saw something move between the trees. A shape, man-shaped, but wrong. Taller, wider, hunched over, eyes glinting like coals, lips peeled back from two long teeth. It looked at me, and for a split second I felt its hunger gnawing at my own stomach. I stepped back, but my feet felt heavy, rooted. Suddenly my hands cramped, my fingers curled into claws, nails growing, skin stretching, bones threatening to break. I gasped, doubling over, trying not to scream. It passed, but the feeling didn't leave. I clutched the silver coin so hard it left a mark. In the back of my mind, something was laughing, low and mean. My phone buzzed. A message from Cass. "You heard a weird noise by the creek. Call me if you need." I wanted to reply, but what could I say? I'm turning into something I can't explain. I'm losing pieces of myself every time the moon rises. I closed my eyes, trying to remember who I was. Before the mark, before the blood, before the howling. Could the monster be me? Some secrets can't be buried, but they can be warned. Share this before someone else opens the wrong door. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, the howling crept back in. Not from the woods this time, but from somewhere inside me, echoing down corridors I'd never walked. At some point, exhaustion won. I drifted into a feverish half-dream, where the world bled red at the edges and the moon hung low, huge and swollen, spilling rust-colored light through the trees. In the dream, I wasn't alone. Cass was there, younger, her hair longer, standing at the edge of the creek with a shadow beside her. I recognized the other shape, Tyler, my old friend, the one who vanished last year, the one I never talked about, the one whose name everyone whispered like a curse. I watched the memory play out, Tyler shouting, begging us not to go deeper into the woods, voice shaking, eyes wild with something I didn't understand then. Cass daring him, me laughing, the sound sharp and brittle as breaking glass. It started as a game, a dare, a sprint under the blood moon. Nothing but stupid bravado and teenage boredom. But the farther we ran, the more Tyler pulled away, slower, his fear growing until he stopped dead beneath an ancient pine. He pulled something from his pocket, a silver coin, the same one I clutched in my fist even now, and pressed it into my hand. "Promise me," he whispered, If I don't come back, you keep this and don't follow me, no matter what you hear. But I did follow. We all did. The moon split the clouds overhead, painting the world in red and black. Tyler stepped beyond the tree line, and the woods swallowed him whole. We waited, nerves turning to laughter, then to silence. Then the screaming started. I tried to run, but the earth felt like it was gripping my feet. Cass's hand squeezed mine so hard it left bruises, and then nothing. A blackout, like a curtain, fell. The next thing I remembered, I was waking up on my bedroom floor, shirt torn, hands bloody, the mark burning on my chest. Guilt surged through me, bitter and burning. I betrayed him. I left him behind. A voice, my own, twisted and animal, echoed in my skull. If you had to betray one to save many, would you? Still here? Then you're already marked. Stay till the end, or run while you can. Could you live with a betrayal that saved lives? Comment your answer. After that dream, I couldn't look at myself the same way. Every time I glanced at my reflection, I saw shadows flicker behind my eyes, his eyes, Tyler's, or maybe something older, something never meant to wear a human face. My chest ached with guilt, the mark pulsing like a second heartbeat, hot and relentless. Cass tried to reach me all day. Texts, knocks at the door. Finally, she cornered me in the street, under the flickering light outside the old factory. She didn't waste time on small talk. "What happened out there?" she demanded, her voice sharp as broken glass. I wanted to tell her everything. About the coin, the woods, Tyler's dare, the way the howling never left me. But the words jammed in my throat, fear and shame mixing, until I couldn't tell which belonged to which. Before I could answer, a sound ripped through the silence. Not quite a howl, not quite a scream. Something twisted and ragged coming from the alley behind the factory. Cass and I spun at the same time, hearts racing. We should have run, but something pulled me forward, deeper into the dark. The smell hit first, copper and rot, thick enough to choke on. In the shadows, I saw movement. A shape hunched over something on the ground. My mind tried to make it human, but it wasn't. Long arms, claws glinting, fur matted with blood. For a moment, its head snapped up, eyes blazing red, and I saw Tyler's face, just for a second, warped with pain and hunger. Cass gasped, backing away. The creature lunged, fast, all claws and teeth, but it went straight for me. Instinct took over, my vision blurred, my bones twisted, fire racing through my veins as the beast inside answered the call. I didn't remember what happened next. Not clearly, red and black. Blood, pain, mine and not mine. When it was over, I was on my knees, breathing hard, rain washing blood from my hands. Cass stood a few feet away, shaking, eyes wide with terror and something else, recognition. I wanted to tell her it wasn't me, but I could see in her face she already knew. That's when I realized the mark on my chest had changed, spread somehow. A thin red line curling out from the crescent, reaching for my shoulder. The curse doesn't just punish, it spreads. The line between human and monster has vanished. Still with me? Then you've heard the howl too. Subscribe before the next full moon finds you. The rain didn't let up all night. By dawn, Silver Pines was shrouded in mist, the streets slick with secrets no sun could burn away. I spent the hours pacing my room, heart stuttering between dread and determination, waiting for something to change. But the mark on my chest kept growing, veins of red threading across my skin, tracing out a map of everything I'd done wrong. Cass stopped answering my messages. Dad didn't come home. By noon, the air was heavy with warning, a pressure building in my bones, a hunger gnawing at my ribs. I knew somehow that tonight was the night. The curse had a rhythm, a pattern. Blood calls to blood, and the moon calls to those it marks. I left the house as dusk crawled over the town. The woods were already alive with whispers, shadows bending in the corners of my vision. I followed the old path to the factory, the coin Cass gave me clutched in my hand, the memory of Tyler's scream echoing in every step. When I reached the clearing, Cass was waiting for me. Her eyes were rimmed red from crying, but her jaw was set. She didn't flinch when I approached, even though I could smell her fear. Tart and sharp like lightning in the air before a storm. "I saw what happened last night," she said, voice shaking. "I know what you are, but I know it's not your fault." I shook my head, guilt a razor in my throat. "It doesn't matter. Tyler, he's still out there. And whatever I am, I think I'm supposed to finish what we started. We heard it before we saw it. A howl, half human, half wrong, tearing through the fog." The woods fell silent. Cass grabbed my arm. "I'm coming with you." I tried to argue, but she was already moving, brave or reckless or just tired of being left behind. We found Tyler in the ruins of the old mill, hunched and broken, the curse twisting him into something barely recognizable. His eyes found mine, and for a moment I saw the friend I'd lost, because I'd run, because I'd let fear drive me away when he needed me most. He lunged, and the beast inside me answered. Bones snapped, flesh shifted, my hands became claws, my vision rimmed with red. I fought him, fought myself, fought the guilt that had grown teeth and claws and wanted nothing more than to consume me whole. Cass screamed, my name, Tyler's, it all blurred together. The fight was brutal, primal, not man against beast, but guilt against forgiveness. I realized as we tore at each other that only one of us would walk away. I pinned Tyler to the ground, teeth bared, his chest heaving. For a heartbeat, the monster faded, and he looked at me, really looked at me. "Let me go," he whispered. "Or end it. I can't live like this." I hesitated, torn between mercy and violence. What if killing the beast means killing yourself? One howl, one heartbeat, one last chance. Subscribe to find out if he makes the right choice. Afterward, I sat in the mud behind the mill, chest heaving, hands shaking, rain mixing with blood as the world slowed around me. The woods were quiet again, but not with peace, only with the hush that comes when something terrible is finished, or just waiting to begin again. Tyler was gone. I don't know if I set him free or just sent him somewhere worse. Cass crouched beside me, silent, her hand gripping mine so tight it hurt. Neither of us spoke for a long time. I looked down at my chest, half expecting the mark to be gone, but it was still there, fainter now. The angry red faded to a dull scar, but it pulsed with every beat of my heart. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I wasn't sure if I meant it for Tyler or Cass or myself. She squeezed my hand harder. "It's not over, is it?" she asked. I shook my head. The woods watched us from the shadows. The moon, thin and tired, broke through the clouds. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. The world was turning, but I wasn't sure which way. I left the coin at the base of the old pine, the same one where we lost Tyler, the same place the curse was born. Maybe someone else will find it. Maybe the story will begin again. As Cass and I walked back toward the edge of town, I felt lighter and heavier all at once. I'd survived the night, but the woods behind Silver Pines have long memories. I know I'm marked. I know I'll never be the same. But I also know I'm not alone. Not anymore. He walked away, but the woods still watched. If the howl still echoes in your ears, share and subscribe. Because next time, it might not be just a story. It might be your street. And for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our Ultimate Werewolf Horror playlist, linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them, and trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.